Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Graduate School of Political Management's webinar on the Master's Degree in Political Management. My name is Lauren, and I will be your moderator for the day. Again, I would like to go over some logistics for this presentation and address some commonly asked questions. All participants are in listen-only mode. To ask questions, please type them into the chat box at the right-hand side of your screen and hit enter. You may ask questions anytime throughout the presentation. Questions will be addressed in the Q&A section of the webinar. At the end of this webinar, you will be able to receive a copy of the slides and a recording of the webinar. Your panelists for today are Dr. Michael Cornfield, once and a recent alum of the program, Mary Sloan, an enrollment advisor, and myself, Lauren Cottrell, as moderator. Michael Field studies and advises on campaign politics, public affairs, and the Internet. Field is the acting program director at the GW's Graduate School of Political Management. We're taught the core course on strategy and message development since 1994. He's a semester in Washington program for undergraduates and the Institute for Politics, Democracy, and the Internet. Cornfield has served as the senior research consultant Pew Internet and American Life Project, where he pioneered the study of political online advertising, blogs, and subscriber email, collaborated in survey research and analysis of political media use by citizens, and commented on related new developments in online campaigning. Johnson is currently a director of partnerships at change.org, an online activism platform that empowers anyone, anywhere to start and join and win campaigns for social change. Before joining change.org, Will spent 3.5 years as the Associate Director of Development and Director of Alumni Relations for GW's Graduate School of Political Management. Will's experience also includes work in the government and electoral politics, having served stints with the Maryland Democratic Party, the Office of Economic Development and Planning for the City of Boston under Thomas Menino, the Office of U.S. Senator John Kerry, and the John Kerry President campaign in 2004. Will is an honors graduate of both Amherst College and GW's Graduate School of Political Management. He is joined us today to speak about his experience in the program. Sloan is your enrollment and admissions advisor at GW's Graduate School of Political Management. She will assist you with the admissions and financial aid process, make it easy for you to get started and to pursue your degree. To the agenda, Dr. Cornfield is going to speak briefly about the GSPM and its programs. He will then give you an overview of the political management program. Then we'll move on to our hot topics section of our webinar, where Dr. Cornfield will talk about money and politics. We will then talk about his experience in the political management program, and then the presentation will be handed over to Mary Sloan, go over the admissions and funding portion of our webinar. We will answer your questions in the Q&A section of the webinar. So I'm going to hand the presentation over to Dr. Michael Cornfield, who is going to speak about the GSPM.
Hello to everyone. I hope you're getting ready to have a nice fall weekend. And thanks for joining us to learn about the Graduate School of Political Management, which is really unlike any graduate school anywhere else in the world. We're 5 years old. We were begun actually in New York City in the late 1980s and moved to Washington, D.C. in the middle of the 1990s. It seemed like the logical place to find a permanent home for a school devoted to the study of how to become a practicing political advisor or staffer. We offer, as you can see, master's degrees in political management, legislative affairs, and strategic public relations. And if you decide that you're interested in legislative affairs or strategic public relations, you can go to our website and consult the stream of the seminars we ran for those two legs of our three-legged stool. Today we're going to talk about political management, the sort of the mainstay of the graduate school. We also offer graduate certificates, which takes half the time and you take half the courses in such subjects as PAC management, and I'm going to have a lot to say about PACs in a few minutes, campaign strategy, online politics, public relations, and our Spanish language strategic governance certificate. Next slide, please. Most students who come to the Graduate School of Political Management and get a master's degree in political management take about 2 years to get through the program. We offer courses in the summer as well as the fall and the spring. We do not expect, and we have not geared the courses for a full-time immersive experience as you might find in a med school or a business school. Instead, most of our students work somewhere in the greater Washington area in a job or an internship related to sort of things they are studying. And we designed the curriculum with that work experience enhancement in mind. Our classes meet in the evenings, therefore, Monday through Thursdays at GW's Foggy Bottom campus, which is 5 blocks from White House. The whole mission of the Graduate School of Political Management is to provide an academic setting where people of all parties, and increasingly people from many countries and democracies around the world, can master the practical skills and forge the personal connections you need to succeed in this multi-billion-dollar field. And forging personal connections is just as important as learning practical skills. Whether it's raising money, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, or learning how to craft messages and manage online content, or learn how to measure the responses and the interests and opinions of citizens, or mobilizing citizens for advocacy or grassroots organizing. We teach all of these and we show you how they all fit together. Most of our faculty are practicing professionals, and we are rare in that we have an unbelievable supply of top-tier professionals to draw upon in every aspect of political management, as you might expect being in Washington, D.C. Our classes are lively, they're nonpartisan. You will learn what the other side thinks if you are a Republican or a Democrat, and you'll learn what both sides think if you haven't made up your mind. Next slide, please. Here, the curriculum is designed. Everyone who comes in for a 2-year program in Masters in Political Management takes 6 core courses. The Fundamentals of Political Management, which is an applied history course, research methods for political managers, a 2-course sequence on communication because it's that important, communicating elements and communicate strategy, as for political managers and political leadership. These 6 courses, which get halfway through, students then take one of 2 options. They either decide to write a thesis, which takes them 2 courses or a full year's worth of time, and fill out their schedule with 4 electives, or take 5 electives and they take our capstone course, Advanced Problems and Strategy, which is a course in learning about strategy and bargaining and game theory. You can see there are 3 general elective clusters that you can focus on: electoral politics, campaigns for office; advocacy politics, campaigns to obtain policy outcomes like legislation or regulatory rulings; and advanced political skills such as learning about new media, learning legal compliance, and a host of other expert topics. Next slide, please.
About that, let me go back to that again. Sorry, we were going to go into our first informal poll and to see what you'd like to learn in future webinar sessions. So please take a few minutes to fill that out on the right side of your screen. Then the poll results will be shown after the poll has closed. All right, now I'm going to hand the presentation back to you, Dr. Cornfield, and you can speak to what the typical political management student profile looks like.
Thanks, Lauren. I see many students are in their early to mid-20s. They're 1 to 2 years out of college. We also have a good number of mid-career politicos who are in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s. I mentioned before, most of them work full-time, and the courses take place at night. And load is geared to balance out academic career with the understanding that students have full-time jobs as well. Excuse me. Here are a few reasons why students tell us that they come to our graduate school. We're a well-known, internationally known university. Our location means that students can take advantage of other people who are working in our field in the nation's capital and in the U.S. government and in the embassies and consulting firms on K Street. And also tap into our network, which is an alumni network and an alumni of the George Washington University as well as the graduate school. I've talked about the other items already, so let's go to the next slide.
Dr. Cornfield, we're going to move on to the next section of our webinar where we cover our hot topic. This is our special feature for today's presentation centered around money and politics. I just want to take a minute to remind attendees that if you have any questions, to please enter them into the chat box. We will address these questions in the Q&A section of the webinar. All right, back to you, Dr. Cornfield.
Thanks. We've just added this very morning a new course on executive fundraising to our curriculum, and it's a sign of the times and how important fundraising has become to the practice of politics. Next slide, please. This has a very unusual system, and it always is striking to our international students. It's the most broadly based and this may surprise you, one of the most corrupt-free systems of money and politics in the world. We have thousands of political action committees, which are the basic units that organize the raising and dispersing of funds, including those run by parties. We have hundreds of thousands of candidates and hundreds of thousands of people who are advocates of one cause or another, and we have coming out of the graduate school and other places people who act as managers and brokers and bundlers of money for these many groups and these many individuals. Perhaps the best and most democratic feature of the way money flows through American politics, however, is that a campaign cycle, which is 2 years in length, more than 10 million American citizens contribute money to one group or one candidate or one party or another. There isn't another nation in the world where you have tens of millions of people participating in this way. And many people express discontent with the imbalances and the occasional illegalities that surface in connection with money and politics, and well that they should. The system is also undergoing its greatest change since it was really established in the 1970s, and that's keyed to a series of Supreme Court and Federal Election Commission decisions, of which the most notable is Citizens United versus FEC, which was issued in January of 2010. As a result of these new developments, the system is becoming even more unruly and more democratic, depending on your point of view. Next slide. So the Graduate School of political management, you would learn from practicing professionals how to set up a PAC, how to raise money, how to make a budget, how to plan to raise and spend money, how to comply with the law, how to communicate about the money you spend. Very important because money has great symbolic value. You would learn how to use the latest digital technologies, and by latest I mean up to the minute. So today, this year, for the first time in the campaign trail and in volunteering, we're seeing people attend high-dollar events, and instead of handing over a check, they encounter somebody who has one of those portable devices that accepts credit cards, and you just swipe it in front of them and record the data and move ahead. We also teach the classic methods of fund solicitation and growth and expenditures because there's still nothing better than a handshake and a sincere look in the eye when you are processing political money. The knowledge that we impart as part of our curriculum on money is meant to apply mostly to campaigns for office and campaigns on behalf of causes and pieces of legislation, but it also applies, the skills and strategies that you learn also applies to nonprofit fundraising, corporate giving. It even applies to the more entrepreneurial of our students who want to create their own firms and do something in public affairs. Next slide.
All right, thank you, Dr. Cornfield. Now I'd like to introduce Will, who is going to speak about his experience in the program. Will, do we have you? It seems that Will is having some trouble logging in here, so what we are going to do is if you have any questions for him to please chat us with that, and hopefully he'll be able to join us later in the webinar and answer some of the questions. If not, we can certainly get those questions answered for you if you send those away. We will move on to the admissions requirement section of the webinar. I'm going to pass this over to Mary Sloan, who's going to go over this section. Mary?
Hi, thanks, Lauren. Well, as you can see, a list of admissions requirements are on the screen. It's a standard set of requirements. There's just a few things I want to draw your extra attention to. Item number 3, there are 3 letters of recommendation that are required. Typically, we recommend that you submit one recommendation from a professional supervisory reference and another from an academic, a former professor. However, if you are somebody who has been out of school for a number of years and getting a letter from an academic reference would be difficult, you can certainly submit an extra professional letter in its place, and that's fine. And item number 5, GRE scores. GRE scores are required for the political management program. It can be possible to earn a GRE waiver in some cases. This would apply to students who've had 3 or more years of experience, and typically this experience needs to be professional, supervisory, or some sort of high-level work experience and a 3.0 GPA. Important note is that if there are anyone interested in spring 2012 admission, there are some significant changes going on with the GRE now, and the result of that is that scores are going to be delayed. We're not going to receive scores for tests again after October 16th until the middle of December. So if you are someone who has registered for the GRE for a date that's after October 15th, just let the admissions office know, because what we're going to work on a new policy where for our spring 2012 applicants, you can go ahead and apply for admission with scores pending, and while we wait delayed scores. So just contact the admissions office if you're somebody who falls in category, and we'll talk to you about this new extension for spring 2012 only. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. International applicants. There are some additional requirements for international applicants. The first would be TOEFL or IELTS scores, and then also international transcripts. So what we require for international students or for students who have degrees earned outside of the United States are submission of official transcripts from your university, but also a detailed course-by-course transcript evaluation. And the evaluation must come from an accredited evaluation agency, and we have a list of those agencies available in the admissions office. So each international student, particularly an international student who's going to require a visa in order to study, we recommend that you apply as early as possible, 6 months if ideal. So if you're thinking about applying for fall 2012, it's really helpful if you can get in touch with the admissions office now, and we can take you step by step through this, because there are these additional requirements required for admission in addition to the things that you would need to submit to be processed for you. Okay, Lauren, you can move on. Slide. Okay, funding. If you be seeking federal student aid, you'll need to submit the FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid. I recommend that students submit the FAFSA at the same time that they submit the application for admission, because both are long processes. The application, the FAFSA tends to be before the application for admission deadline, so it is helpful to do these at about the same time. There are a wealth of resources here at GW for funding outside of loans, veteran programs, grants, and things like that. If you need help being connected with any of these resources at the university, just contact admissions and we'll help you get in contact with offices and gather information for you about this process. But the most important thing to keep in mind, both for admissions and for financial aid, is to apply early and keep in touch with us as you go through this process so that we can give you assistance with both financial aid and the application process.
Thank you, Mary. Now we are going to take our second short break for our next informal poll. We'd just like to know what GSPM program you are most interested in. Please take a few moments to fill that out on the right-hand side of your screen. And keep in mind that recordings of our webinars can be found on our website at gspm.gwu.edu/webinars. With that, we're going to move into our Q&A section of the webinar. We're going to answer some of the questions that we had. And the first one I would like to direct towards Mary. May we have some questions about the GRE waiver and how it works, and what's the best way to get across you're qualified to receive that waiver?
Sure. Well, there's the GRE waiver process happens obviously before you would be submitting an application for admission. You're required to submit a current resume and a brief statement of purpose, but this statement of purpose differs from the one that you'll submit with the application, because this one is really career specific. So that's where you're going to want to go into some detail about the work you've done, and this goes on to a committee for review. The information and the form itself found on the GSPM website. If you go to the GSPM website and click on admissions, you'll see a link for GRE information, and you can find the waiver form there. And you can fax those forms to me, or you can scan them and email them to me as well.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And Michael, how long does it take to get this degree, and can you do it in a year?
It's difficult to do it in a year. Some students are able to do it in 18 months. Some students take breaks as well to work on campaigns, although there are serious university rules about completing incompletes. Generally, you should allot 2 years' time. Again, it's 2 years' time while you are working or interning to the completion of a GSPM degree.
Thank you, Michael. And Mary, are financial aid deadlines different than the application deadline?
Are different. The financial aid deadline for spring semester is October 1st, and for fall is May 1st. But for those interested in spring, don't let the October 1st deadline deter you applying. That's the priority deadline, and they will continue to process applications for financial aid past that date. That's the targeted primary deadline for that. But it is helpful for those thinking about fall. As soon as you've done your taxes for this year and you have your all those forms, you can start the FAFSA. So you could do this as early as January, and it is helpful to get that in as early as possible.
And I think we have Will on the phone. Will, are you there?
Lauren, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. We do have some questions for you, but I know that you have some things that you had prepared to say you're part of the webinar. If you want to start by answering those questions that we had posed for you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as a mom, I was really, I was very proud to go to the program, and I had a lot of questions as to, what the benefits are. I think the first and the foremost is developing a real-world practical skill set that you take what you learn in the classroom and apply it every day on the job. When you work in Washington or you work in politics, a lot of what you're asked to do is very different from what many people were asked to do in college. And so it's not necessarily about expounding on points for long periods of time and writing long papers. A lot of it is about drilling things down into a 1 or 2 page memo, and that's something that that you to do on a daily basis. I think the Cross in Washington is about doing things quickly and efficiently and getting a lot of information down in sort of a minimal amount of time. And GSPM was really great. Was really great at teaching me that. What it did is really give me a great network of not only classmates but also along that are very plugged into the scene in Washington and the political scene nationally and internationally. So we are taking some time to go at night, and it can be difficult while you're working. I really found that it really helped me go leaps and bounds ahead of some of the competition because I was learning a broad-based skill set across a host of different areas in politics. I was able to apply that on a daily basis at work, and as I was coming out of school, I had this deep network of classmates and alumni and professors that I could lean on and that I could trade for political intelligence with, but it's really helped me as I've moved forward in my career.
Oh, thank you, Will. What is the most important part of the application? Is there one thing that weighs more than the other?
Not really. The committee looks at the applications in a holistic manner. So they'll look at every piece, the resume and the statement of purpose and grades. And certainly there are minimums. The suggested minimum GPA is a 3.0 and then 30th percentile for each section of the GRE. But because they look at everything as a whole, if one of those sections is weaker, then certainly that doesn't eliminate you from being considered for admission. In a case like that, you would want to make sure that all of the parts of your application are as strong as they can possibly be, strong letters of recommendation. You can put a lot of emphasis on the statement of purpose because this, in addition to being what lets the committee know more about you and your background and your interests, it's really the only thing that the committee sees that is an example of your ability to write. So all pieces of applications are part of the applications are really key.
Thank you. Dr. Field, what's the strategy for finding a job while pursuing and after the completion of the degree?
Politics is talk. Teach people how to talk effectively and efficiently and persuasively, as Will suggested, and what you learn to do and what you fall into doing naturally and rigorously almost without knowing it while you're here, learning how to present yourself and how to explore the opportunities that can open up on a daily basis in the center of politics, which is what Washington, D.C. is. That said, we also have an outstanding alumni network, a crackerjack, student services and career placement operation to help you be systematic about what it is you want to do. The last thing I'd say is that when you come to the graduate school, you not only learn what it is you're working on, but what to and what teams of campaigners do to make things work together. So you're prepared, you're versatile when you come out of here than you would be if you just did work in politics on your own. You know what the other parts of the puzzle are, and you're ready to solve them and help clients solve them.
Michael, I have a question about how the classroom experience was. Did you find your fellow students to be friendly, and were you able to make friends and network quickly?
Absolutely, Lauren. One of the great things about the classroom experience is that it is sort of inherently friendly. as Dr. Corn was mentioning, one of the things that you learn in politics, particularly at GSPM, is how to express yourself and how to hone your own point of view while respecting someone else's. And in Washington, and I've lived in Washington for a long time, one of the things about the classroom is that there was a give and take between students and professors and between fellow students of both of the party and of different parties. And it was not common. And in fact, it was more than the inception for people in class, even though it's pretty late in the hour, and go to the bar afterwards and continue the debate and continuing to get to know each other, figuring out more about what people were doing during the day as they were working, and that's when you really sort of leverage the relationships and make all kinds of connections in a way that continue to benefit people's careers. I know several alumni who had a job or an internship, and as they would move up, the first thing they would do was look for another GSPMer to fill that job. There are jobs in Senate offices and on presidential campaigns that I know have basically been inherited by one GSPMer to another GSPMer because they make those personal connections in the classroom.
Thank you, Will. Dr. Cornfield, I have a question for you. How significant is having your undergraduate degree in a related field to the potential success in the program?
Well, surprisingly, it's not that important at all. Politics and government span so many human and social endeavors that you have a background in, say, engineering or in the culture of another country, there's a place for you somewhere in the public affairs system, and we can help you discover that and make the most of the skills and knowledge bases that you already possess. So it's not just for people who are interested in political science in college.
Thank you. Mary, a question about the references. Do they all have to be, or did there have to be an academic reference and a professional reference, or can you have some that is all academics?
This is a really common question for students who are coming straight out of undergrad who don't have a lot of professional experience, and you can. Again, much like we would ask somebody who's submitting only professional to make sure that they would have professional people who can speak to their ability to be successful in a graduate program as far as reading and research and writing and research and things like that, we would expect that somebody who's submitting academic would be able to have recommenders who can speak to their potential to be successful in a graduate program in the sense of being professional and their work and things like that. So yes, that is possible, absolutely.
Thank you, Mary. Dr. Cornfield, with some questions about the elective classes, are you able to take classes from other sections of the GSPM and from within GU?
Not only are you able to go to the Elliott School of International Affairs or to the Political Science Department or to our Media and Public Affairs School, you are able through the consortium under certain circumstances to take classes at other top-line universities in the Washington area. So once you've done with your core courses and you have a good idea of what it is you're looking for and what you want to reinforce, there's really a wealth of curricular knowledge available to you.
Thank you. Bill, why do you choose GW in this program over all the other programs that are out in the marketplace?
I think, Lauren, I chose this program because it was head and shoulders. It was the best. And I chose it because both GW and GSPM in particular place a large degree of emphasis on really for the real world. GU and GSPM specifically are really well known for have technicals really deeply interested in the entire sort of political scene that is Washington. And so, from the moment that you step on campus, it's uncommon to walk into a room or to see, a panel with 5 secretaries of state or, 5 former White House press secretaries or, a joint interview between the sitting Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State. And all the events that I went to when I was at GSPM, almost from the moment that I stepped on the campus. And so there's a deep connection between what goes on in the real world, sort of policy and political-wise, goes on sort of academically. And you and GSPM were, shoulders above the rest of being able to really make that tie for me and do it in a way that I was able to a deep sense of what was required to be successful in politics. It was more hands-on than my other experience, which I enjoyed tremendously, but it was something I needed. I needed a different sort of immediate real-world impact, and GSPM gave me the ability to do that.
You will. Dr. Cornfield, we have a question about coming in and meeting you or sitting in on one of your classes, and who do they contact to set that up?
There's a small $3,000 fee to spend 10 minutes with me, and then you can, well, I'm just kidding, of course. You just email the school or call the school and tell them that you'd like to see me. If you're thinking of doing this in the next few weeks or few months, generally I'm around and free toward the end of the week when I'm not doing webinars. My classes this semester are in the beginning of the week on Monday and Tuesday nights, and you are welcome to come and sit in, and you can check syllabi, which are posted at the GSPM website to see what the subject of discussion is going to be on any particular night. So always happy to meet people who are interested in politics and interested in the GSPM.
Thank you, Dr. Cornfield. Will, you can speak to. I have a question about if you're an older student, will you still be able to fit into the classroom and part of the community here?
Absolutely. I was on the older. I'd been out of school for about 5 years, and there were people who had been out farther. I think if you're an older student, as you appreciate the extent to which you bring a different perspective, you will definitely sit in the classroom. There are people who are right out of school. There are people who are just a few years out. There are people who maybe 5 or 6 years, and the people who've been out longer. And having that diversity in the classroom is really important because people come with different experiences and different political realities. But one that I was always really impressed by was the extent to which everyone came in who was in the classroom. On exception, had respect for other people's points of view. And if you came to class prepared and informed and making intelligent points, there was always room for you to be heard. Everyone was really accepted. Everyone wants to get to know everyone. Because you're only as good as your network in DC, specifically, and in politics in general. And so every human in the classroom is an opportunity to, one, make a friend, but two, sort of expand your political network and increase your value in a very political town. Yes, I think older students will fit in just fine. In fact, you'll probably be flocked if you'd be surprised.
Thank you, Will. Dr. Cornfield, I have a question about a person that is interested in polling and research. And would a background in mathematics be helpful for that?
But it's important to stress that sometimes a background in mathematics is not necessary. What we teach is how to work with people who are quantitatively oriented. We teach people fundamentals of statistics and probabilities. Increasingly, we're teaching people to analyze web data as well, which works into some sorts of algorithmic equations. But what you really learn when you come to the GSPM is how to be a critical reader of quantitative data and how to commission quantitative data, and third and most importantly, how to act once you've received some timely quantitative data. So you want to work with numbers if you are quantitatively, if you have an aptitude for that sort of stuff. There is a place for you here, and there certainly is in politics and public affairs, but it's not necessary. You'll learn, and we have professors who are really adept at working with people who come from the humanities as well as those who come from the hard sciences, and get them to understand what people in politics do with numbers, and that's really what we teach.
Dr. Cornfield. Will, does the GSPM allow flexibility if you have other commitments, or say you want to work on the 2012 election is coming up? Can you a little bit to, have the flexibility to do commitments?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of flexibility is certainly the name of the game. Over 95% of the professors at GSPM are adjunct professors, which means that they themselves, like most of the student body, have other commitments during the day. They either are top staffers on the Hill, or they work firms, and so they're definitely willing to work with you to that you have commitments. The classroom is important. What you learn is important. And I think what I always found is that if you work with your professors upfront and you're upfront with them, more than not, they're willing to work with you, especially during the election season. It's not uncommon for people to take leave. It's not uncommon for professors to cancel class because they're on MSNBC or Fox News or so on and so forth. Things do happen. What happens in the classroom is critically important, and it needs to be a priority for you. So, I would not encourage people to work on a presidential campaign while being in class. That's probably too difficult. But you to be using what you're learning in the classroom every day while you're working. So to the extent that your amendments are helping you do that, and if you're mature and professional, come to your professors on the front end, they're more than willing to work with you.
Well, Dr. Cornfield, can you name some of the careers that this degree kind of feeds into?
I was named some of them. Let me see if I can name some more. Grassroots coordinator, people spokesperson, content manager, lobbyist, press secretary, interest group manager, really, if you look at the listings I don't know if graduate school listings are available to students, but if you look at the listings in top publication like Politico or Roll Call, most of those jobs, our graduates are in prime position to win those jobs and to fill them and move on to something else.
Cool. Mary, I have a question about the undergraduate GPA. If it's under 3.0, should that deter anybody from applying to the program?
No, absolutely not. If you have an undergraduate GPA that's below a 3.0, it's then extremely important that you just make the other parts of your application as strong as possible. So strong statement of purpose, letters of recommendation, things like that. If particular concerns about your case, you're welcome to talk to admissions, and we can sort of give you a little bit of additional insight. But in general, no, absolutely not. It's possible to be admitted with a GPA below a 3.0 if all of the other parts of your application are compelling.
Thank you, Mary. And Will, can you speak a little bit about the relationship between the GSPM alumni and the GW alumni and the GSPM students?
Sure. GSPM, is a full-fledged part of the university, and I'd say I also, I don't know if this was announced earlier, but I used to run alumni relations for the program and a chunk of funding. And there's a hand-in-glove relationship between sort of the GSPM alumni and the wider GW community. As a whole, takes good advantage of its location, being sort of at the center of Washington, literally being 4 or 5 blocks from the White House. And as the preeminent school for professional policy nation, we have a lead role in that university. So when it comes to looking for spokespeople and connection to people in the political realm, the rest of the university relies on us very heavily for that. And so we play a role in maintaining good alumni relations throughout the university. A degree in GSPM will make the other parts of the alumni relations world and other alumni at GW that much easier, because just a number of people who at GW are coming to be part of the political world in some way, shape, or form. And GSPM, a degree from GSPM is probably the deepest expression of that. So it'll be that easier for you to sort of reach out to alumni in other portions of the university.
Well, Mary, can GMAT be substituted for the GRE?
It can't, actually. It's the GRE only. With the except you have the LSAT, we will accept LSAT scores, but only GRE.
Thank you, Mary. And Michael, can you describe the capstone class a little bit more?
Capstone class is devoted principally to learning advanced strategic theory and practice, by which I mean game theory, negotiations, combining public statements with private tactics to be persuasive and win an advantage. There's a lot of role playing in that class, simulations, almost like war games, and emerge from that class with a sense that you can succeed in diagnosing and getting the most out of almost any political situation that you might encounter.
The specifics of that class are secret, right? So the rule about capstones, you can't talk about capstones. If you really know the deal, you have to come to school.
Yeah, Fight Club provision. That's correct.
Yes. And that I am going to conclude today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. If you have any other questions, please feel free to either email them to us at gspminfo@gwu.edu. And if we have not answered your questions, we will be getting back to you. So please take note of these important dates for applications. November 15th for spring admission, April 15th for summer admission, and June 15th for fall admission. So please feel free to contact us with any of your questions, or if you'd like to sit on a class. Also, don't forget to connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We look forward to hearing from you and assisting you in your graduate school decision. Thank you again for attending our webinar, and we appreciate your interest in our programs. In the rest of your afternoon.